James Longstreet's eyewitness account reveals the chaos of Confederate forces at Antietam. Join us, let's have this conversation. With 23,000 casualties in a single day, the Battle of Antietam marked not only the bloodiest morning in American history, but also the moment when the Confederacy's vulnerabilities became glaringly apparent. Only one individual had the courage to articulate the truth. James Longstreet, the most trusted general of Robert E. Lee, foresaw the impending disaster. The Confederate forces faced starvation, a reckless strategy aimed at dividing their army, and commanders burdened by injuries and pride, all while engaging in a perilous invasion of the North. While history often depicts Lee as a master tactician, Longstreet's account unveils a more troubling narrative of arrogance, disorder, and a sunken road drenched in blood. The South's downfall was not solely due to Union fire, but also stemmed from fractured leadership, disregarded warnings, and a desperate general who had to load cannons with his bare hands as chaos ensued. This account challenges the sanitized narrative of the lost cause. It presents Antietam through the perspective of a man who experienced it firsthand, who confronted Lee, witnessed horses being struck down in the midst of battle, and spoke harsh truths, even as his own staff succumbed around him. The true narrative of America's bloodiest day begins here, and Longstreet's revelations will alter your understanding of the events. Before we delve deeper, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel to support our community. The situation necessitated an immediate military response with strategic attention directed toward Potomac crossings, as emphasized by Longstreet. In an effort to protect Virginian territories from further hostilities, Robert E. Lee and his officers reached a consensus that launching an offensive campaign had become essential. Confederate forces quickly mobilized, with Longstreet beginning his advance towards Leesburg, crossing the Potomac River. By September 7th, his divisions had reached Frederick, Maryland, where portions of the local population welcomed them warmly, offering supplies and vocal encouragement. Lee, focusing on the security of the Army's rear flank, suggested redeploying troops to capture Harper's Ferry. Longstreet, however, opposed this plan, warning that dividing their forces in the face of nearby Union threats could lead to catastrophe. The next day, Longstreet met with Lee and Jackson at headquarters, a trio facing physical challenges. Lee's hands were bound in splints due to an injury. Longstreet was limping in a slipper from a blistered heel, and Jackson was recovering from injuries sustained in a horseback accident. Despite Longstreet's insistence on a coordinated effort against Harper's Ferry, Lee permitted only a limited number of reinforcements from Longstreet's corps to support Jackson's mission. The Army of Northern Virginia then moved westward, utilizing the mountainous terrain for defensive advantage. Jackson set out for Harper's Ferry, while Longstreet remained at Boonesboro. This arrangement was soon disrupted by Union movements, as reports of Federal troops advancing from Hagerstown led Lee to order Longstreet to move northward on September 11th. During the march, Longstreet became increasingly frustrated with the Army's dispersion. "General, I propose we consolidate our position and allow Federal forces to engage us here," he urged Lee. The harsh conditions further complicated the campaign. Relentless forced marches from Richmond left the troops in a state of exhaustion, leading to a significant increase in desertion rates, which diminished their effective strength by approximately 25% as they advanced northward. To exacerbate these difficulties, the local populace in this Maryland area exhibited a marked lack of sympathy for the Confederate cause. Soldiers seeking supplies were met with hostility, including slammed doors and verbal insults. From September 12th to 13th, Longstreet's corps experienced a brief period of respite while stationed in Hagerstown. However, this fragile calm was shattered when Stuart informed Lee of Union forces moving through the Catoctin Mountains towards South Mountain. With McClellan's army poised to take advantage of the Confederate divisions, Lee and Longstreet were compelled to devise a new strategy. Longstreet proposed a retreat to Sharpsburg to establish fortified positions, which would allow for coordinated counterattacks against the Union flanks. Lee, however, dismissed this suggestion, choosing instead to engage the Federal troops at South Mountain. Confederate units faced fierce combat while defending Turner's, Fox's, and Crampton's gaps. The battered forces of D.H. Hill at Turner's Gap prompted Longstreet to caution Lee about the imminent risk of collapse without reinforcements. In response, Lee authorized a nighttime withdrawal. The retreat to Sharpsburg allowed Lee to position his troops along the ridges surrounding Antietam Creek. Longstreet arrived on September 15th, coinciding with Jackson's successful operation at Harper's Ferry. Anticipating that McClellan would delay his assault until the 17th, the Confederates took the opportunity to regroup. Longstreet set up his headquarters at the Piper farmhouse, located 500 yards south of the sunken road. Henry and Elizabeth Piper graciously hosted Longstreet and Hill for dinner, providing wine. Although Longstreet initially declined, suspecting possible poisoning, he eventually accepted after observing that Hill remained unaffected. The officers spent the night resting in the orchard. On September 16th, following breakfast with the Pipers, Longstreet conferred with Lee regarding the defensive strategies. As anticipated, McClellan's forces mobilized, leading to the commencement of the Battle of Antietam on the 17th. The initial confrontations took place in Miller's cornfield, the surrounding woodlands, and Dunker Church. Longstreet managed operations on the right flank before joining Lee and Hill at the sunken road. Observing Hill's vulnerable position, Longstreet humorously suggested, "If you are determined to attract their fire, ensure there is enough distance to avoid their line of sight." Shortly thereafter, artillery fire struck Hill's horse, severing its legs. Longstreet remarked dryly, "That shot was aimed at you," as chaos ensued. Amidst the grim scene, Longstreet maintained a sense of dark humor while Hill struggled to dismount the agitated horse. "This side, Hill?" "No, the other. Slide backward or climb over its head," he instructed with a dry tone. Once the horse was freed, it was subsequently euthanized. A staff officer later recalled Longstreet's calm demeanor under fire, with his only sign of tension being the grinding of his teeth on cigars. From the Piper farm, he observed the fierce fighting at the sunken road, which would later be known as Bloody Lane, while coordinating reinforcements. The deployment of Richard Anderson's division to support Hill proved ineffective, as Anderson was wounded and command was passed to Roger Pryor. As artillery fire intensified, Pryor urgently called for assistance. Longstreet replied, "Guns are on the way, General. Victory or death. There will be no retreat." A disorganized Confederate withdrawal allowed Union forces to penetrate their lines. Longstreet sent Miller's battery into action, but crew casualties necessitated that his staff, Sorrell, Gorey, Walton, Fairfax, and Manning, manually load and fire the cannons at the advancing troops. Amidst the turmoil, Longstreet ordered canister rounds, and his improvised gun crews played a crucial role in repelling the Union advance. Although he received praise for his leadership after the battle, he later attributed the day's true heroism to D.H. Hill in his writings. Had a Virginian accomplished Hill's achievement, history would celebrate it endlessly. However, Hill originated from the deeper South. Meanwhile, Burnside's corps traversed Antietam Creek, only halted by A.P. Hill's timely reinforcements. The battle ended with 23,000 casualties, marking America's bloodiest day. Longstreet's staff endured significant losses. Walton sustained a shoulder wound, Sorrell was concussed by shell fire, and Fairfax mourned the death of his horse, Saltram. "General, Saltram has been shot. Right in the back," he exclaimed. Longstreet replied with dry humor, "Be thankful it wasn't your back, Major." That evening, Longstreet missed Lee's command meeting, causing concern until he arrived late, cigar in hand, after assisting a family in Sharpsburg during a fire caused by shelling. Lee welcomed him with relief. "My old warhorse, speak. We value your advice." After discussing strategy, the commanders prepared rations for their troops, readying themselves for the uncertainties of dawn. In just 12 hours, 23,000 lives were lost. The fields of Antietam were not merely stained with blood, they were inundated with the shattered dreams of the Confederacy. James Longstreet witnessed everything: the ignored warnings, the disjointed command, the sunken road filled with bodies. Yet, history obscured his truths beneath tales of noble defeat and unblemished Southern heroes. Consider this. What if Lee had listened to his old warhorse? Would a consolidation at Sharpsburg have salvaged the South? Or was Antietam always fated to signal the demise of a cause rooted in arrogance? Longstreet's narrative not only reveals tactical shortcomings, but also exposes the decaying essence of the Confederacy. Starving soldiers, broken trust, and leaders clinging to illusions as cannons thundered. Yet, when the lost cause rewrote history, Longstreet emerged as the villain, while Lee, bound by splints and pride, remained unscathed. Thus, we must ask ourselves, why do we hold on to myths when the truth is so stark, so visceral, so profoundly human? Share your thoughts below. Was Longstreet a disregarded prophet or a traitor to the myth?